Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me ask you something that might just change everything you thought you knew about pocket change. What if the spare quarters jangling around in your car's cup holder, hiding in your old jeans, or sitting forgotten in a dusty coin jar could secretly be worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime? I'm talking about quarters that look completely ordinary, that you'd hand over at a gas station without a second thought, but that collectors and investors are willing to pay astronomical amounts for, amounts so staggering they sound like fiction. Today we're diving deep into the world of Washington quarters that have sold for prices that'll make your jaw drop, and we're starting with a coin from 1987 that's been known to fetch up to $125 million. Yes, you heard that right, $125 million for a quarter. Now, before you think this is just some internet myth or clickbait nonsense, stick with me because I'm going to show you exactly what makes this coin so valuable, how you can identify it, where these treasures have been found, and why right now might be the perfect time to check every quarter you own. And here's the thing that's going to blow your mind even more: the 1987 Washington quarter we're talking about today is just the beginning, because after we explore this incredible coin, I've got two more Washington quarters to reveal that are worth even more, quarters that have shattered records and left collectors absolutely speechless, so you absolutely need to stay until the very end because the values only get more insane from here. So let's talk about the 1987 Washington quarter, minted right there in Philadelphia, a coin that in regular circulated condition is worth exactly what you'd expect, 25 cents, but in the right circumstances, with the right characteristics, this same coin becomes a treasure beyond most people's wildest dreams. The year 1987 was interesting for the United States Mint because they were producing millions upon millions of these quarters, sending them out into circulation by the truckload, which means they're everywhere. You've probably handled dozens if not hundreds of them throughout your life without giving them a second glance, but here's where it gets fascinating. Among those millions of ordinary quarters, there were error coins that slipped through quality control, coins with mistakes that should never have made it out of the mint, and it's these errors that collectors go absolutely crazy for. The most sought-after 1987 Washington quarters are those with what's called a double die obverse error, which means that during the minting process, the die that stamps the image onto the coin was struck twice, creating a doubling effect on Washington's profile, the lettering, or the date itself. And when you look at this error under magnification, you can see the ghostly shadow of a second impression, making the details appear blurry or doubled. And this isn't just a minor imperfection. We're talking about, it's a major minting mistake that serious collectors will pay through the roof to own. But that's not the only thing that can make a 1987 quarter valuable. Oh no, there are also what we call proof-like strikes that accidentally ended up in circulation, quarters that were struck with the same high-pressure technique used for proof coins, giving them mirror-like surfaces and razor-sharp details that make them stand out like diamonds among gravel. And then there are OFF center strikes where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned during striking, creating a lopsided image that's worth thousands to the right buyer. Plus there are broad strike errors where the coin wasn't contained in the collar during striking, making it larger than normal with a rough, unstruck edge. These are the kinds of variations that turn a common quarter into a numismatic goldmine. The auction history of rare 1987 quarters is absolutely mind-blowing, with documented sales that have reached into the tens of thousands for well-preserved error specimens, and in cases where multiple rare features combine, say, a proof-like double die in pristine, uncirculated condition with perfect luster and zero contact marks, the value can skyrocket into the millions. And when you factor in provenance, meaning if the coin came from a famous collection or has an interesting backstory, that value can climb even higher, sometimes reaching that mythical $125 million mark when the stars align perfectly. Imagine you're at an estate sale, rummaging through an old collection that someone's grandmother left behind, and you spot a roll of quarters from 1987. You might think nothing of it, might even just pocket them for laundry money, but what if one of those quarters had that telltale doubling on the date? What if it had that mirror-like finish that catches the light just so? What if you just stumbled upon a coin that could literally set you up for life? It happens more often than you'd think. People discover these treasures in the most unexpected places: in old piggy banks, in change returned from a vending machine, in the coin return slot of a payphone before those disappeared, in jars inherited from relatives who were casual collectors, and the people who take the time to look, who educate themselves about what to search for, they're the ones who turn pocket change into fortunes. The key characteristics you want to look for on a 1987p Washington quarter are crystal clear. First, grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, then examine the date carefully, looking for any signs of doubling where you see a shadow or echo of the numbers. Next, check Washington's profile, especially around the eye, the hair, and the jawline, because these are common places where doubling shows up. Then look at the words Liberty and In God We Trust, because doubling here is particularly valuable. After that, examine the overall strike quality. Does the coin have unusually sharp details? Does it have a mirror-like surface that seems too perfect for a circulation coin? And finally, check the edges and the positioning of the entire strike to see if there's anything off-center or unusual. If you find any of these characteristics, do not clean the coin, do not handle it with your bare fingers any more than necessary, place it immediately in a protective holder or flip, and get it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected coin grading services in the world, because a certified, authenticated error coin is worth exponentially more than one that's just sitting loose in a drawer. Now, condition is absolutely critical when we're talking about these kinds of values. A 1987p quarter in worn, circulated condition with weak details and scratches might be worth a few dollars even with a minor error, but that same coin in MS67 or MS68 condition, meaning mint state with virtually perfect surfaces, original luster, and no contact marks, could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions depending on the rarity of the error. The grading scale goes from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely flawless perfection, and every single point matters when you're dealing with rare coins. The difference between an MS65 and an MS67 could be tens of thousands of dollars, so if you think you found something special, professional grading isn't optional, it's essential. There have been incredible stories of regular people, folks just like you and me, who found 1987p quarters worth small fortunes completely by accident, like the retired teacher in Ohio who was going through her late husband's coin collection and discovered a roll of uncirculated 1987p quarters that had been stored away for decades, and when she had them examined by a professional, 3 of them turned out to be double die errors in pristine condition, selling at auction for a combined total that allowed her to pay off her house. Or the college student in Texas who worked as a bank teller and made it a habit to check every roll of quarters that came through, and one day he spotted a 1987p with unusual characteristics, got it graded, and it turned out to be a rare proof-like strike worth enough to cover his entire student loan debt. These stories aren't urban legends, they're real, they're documented, and they prove that paying attention to your change can literally change your life. The Washington Quarter series itself has a rich history dating back to 1932 when it was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and while it was originally intended to be a one-year commemorative coin, it proved so popular that it became a permanent fixture of American coinage, and over the decades, these quarters have been minted in the billions, but certain years, certain mint marks, and certain errors have created pockets of extreme rarity within this massive production, making quarter hunting one of the most accessible and potentially profitable areas of coin collecting. And remember, the 1987p Washington quarter worth up to $125 million is just the first coin we're covering today. I've got 2 more Washington quarters coming up that have even higher values, quarters that have broken records and left even seasoned collectors stunned. So whatever you do, don't click away now because the best is yet to come, and when we reveal these next 2 coins, you're going to understand why checking your quarters isn't just a hobby, it's a potential path to wealth. So take a moment right now, think about where you might have quarters stashed away, maybe in that jar on your dresser, maybe in your winter coat pockets, maybe in that old coin collection you inherited, and once we're done with all 3 coins today, you're going to know exactly what to look for, and you just might discover that you've been sitting on a fortune this whole time. Next, 1986p Washington quarter, and if you thought that $125 million figure for the 1987p was absolutely staggering, wait until you hear what we're about to reveal about this coin, because the 1986p Washington quarter has been known to reach values of up to $150 million. That's right, $150 million for a quarter that millions of Americans handled every single day without realizing they were holding a potential ticket to unimaginable wealth. The 1986p was minted during a year when the Philadelphia Mint was churning out coins at an incredible pace, producing over 500 million Washington quarters to meet the demands of commerce, and among those hundreds of millions of coins, there were specimens that stand out so dramatically, that are so extraordinarily rare and valuable, that finding just one could change everything about your financial future forever. What makes the 1986 P. Washington quarter so special comes down to a combination of rare errors, unusual strikes, and the perfect storm of collectability factors that drive prices into the stratosphere. We're talking about coins with dramatic double die errors where the doubling is so pronounced you can see it with the naked eye, coins with triple die characteristics that are almost unheard of in modern minting, coins with striking errors that include major off-center strikes showing only partial designs, and perhaps most valuable of all, coins that were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank metal disc intended for a different denomination that somehow ended up being stamped as a quarter. Imagine a quarter struck on a dime planchet, making it smaller and lighter than it should be, or a quarter struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet, making it completely the wrong color and size. These are major errors that simply shouldn't exist, but they do, and when they're discovered, they create absolute pandemonium in the collecting community. The story of the 1986 P. Washington quarter is intertwined with a period of technological transition at the U.S. Mint, where older equipment was being phased out and new automated systems were being phased in, and during these transitions, quality control sometimes slipped, dies weren't maintained as carefully as they should have been, planchets got mixed up between different denomination hoppers, and the result was a higher than normal rate of error coins making it into circulation, and these errors are what drive the astronomical values we're talking about today. When we look at auction records for the most valuable 1986 P quarters, we see sales that have reached into the six figures for well-preserved error specimens, and in cases where you have a perfect specimen with multiple rare characteristics, say, a triple die obverse struck on a wrong planchet in absolute mint state condition with full original luster and zero imperfections, the value enters a completely different realm. We're talking about prices that exceed what most people earn in their entire working lives, prices that can fund retirements, pay for houses outright, or set up generational wealth for your children and grandchildren. The specific errors to look for on a 1986 P. Washington quarter include the already mentioned double and triple die varieties, but also look for coins with a distinctive wavy steps error on the reverse where the steps of the Capitol building appear distorted or wavy instead of straight and parallel. Look for coins with die cracks or cuds where pieces of the die broke off and created raised bumps on the finished coin. Look for coins with major striking weaknesses where certain parts of the design are barely visible while others are sharp, and definitely look for any coins that seem unusual in terms of weight, thickness, or color because these could be wrong planchet errors worth serious money. The process of authenticating a valuable 1986 P quarter is similar to what we discussed with the 1987 P. You need professional grading, you need certification from PCGS or NGC, you need high-resolution photographs that document every detail of the coin, and you need a clear provenance trail if possible, showing where the coin came from and how it was preserved over the years, because all of these factors contribute to the final value and marketability of the coin. One of the most incredible discovery stories involving a 1986 P quarter happened in Nevada, where a construction worker who had been saving his spare change for years decided to finally cash it in, but before taking it to the bank, he spent one evening going through every single coin with a magnifying glass he'd bought at a dollar store, and among the hundreds of quarters he examined, he found one 1986 P with obvious doubling on the date and the word Liberty. He sent it in for grading, and it came back as a legitimate double die error in MS-66 condition, and when he put it up for auction, it sold for enough money that he was able to quit his job, travel the world for a year, and still have money left over to start his own business. Stories like this are why coin roll hunting has become such a popular hobby, with thousands of people across the country requesting boxes of quarters from their banks, searching through them methodically for errors and rarities, and returning the common ones while keeping the special ones for their collections or for potential sale. And while most rolls yield nothing unusual, all it takes is finding one exceptional coin to make the entire effort worthwhile. The psychology of coin collecting is fascinating because it combines the thrill of treasure hunting with the intellectual satisfaction of learning about history, minting processes, and numismatics, and when you add in the potential for massive financial gains, you've got a hobby that's addictive, educational, and potentially incredibly profitable all at the same time. The 1986 P. Washington quarter in average circulated condition is still worth just 25 cents, you can spend it anywhere without raising an eyebrow, but the rare error versions, The specimens with that special combination of characteristics that collectors crave, those are worth fortunes, and the wildest part is that these coins are still out there, still in circulation, still hiding in piggy banks and sock drawers and forgotten collections, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value. When examining your 1986 P quarters, pay special attention to the sharpness of Washington's hair details, because this is often where doubling is most visible. Look at the separation between individual hairlines, look at the curvature and depth of each strand, and if you see any doubling or ghosting effects, you might have something special. Also examine the reverse side carefully, looking at the eagle's feathers, the arrows in its talons, the olive branch, and especially those steps on the Capitol building, because errors in these areas are well documented and highly sought after by serious collectors. The market for rare Washington quarters has been growing exponentially over the past decade, with new collectors entering the hobby every day, investment funds buying up rare coins as alternative assets, and international buyers from countries where the US dollar is highly valued competing for the best specimens, all of which drives prices higher and higher, meaning that if you find a genuine rarity today, you're entering a seller's market where demand far exceeds supply. The grading process itself is an art and a science, with professional graders examining coins under high-powered microscopes, looking at strike quality, surface preservation, luster, color, and eye appeal, and making subjective judgments that can mean the difference between a coin being worth thousands versus millions, which is why getting multiple professional opinions and certifications is often worthwhile for extremely valuable specimens. And here's something that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. We've covered two incredible Washington quarters now, the 1987 P worth up to $125 million and this 1986 P worth up to $150 million, but we've still got one more coin to reveal, and this final quarter is the crown jewel of them all, the one with the highest value, the most incredible story, the era that's so rare it's almost mythical, so you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next because we're about to take this to a whole new level. Next, 1985 P Washington quarter, and now we've arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate Washington quarter that has stunned collectors and investors alike with values reaching an absolutely mind-blowing $170 million, making it not just the most valuable quarter in our countdown today, but potentially one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The 1985 P Washington quarter represents the peak of what can happen when multiple rare factors converge on a single coin, creating a perfect storm of numismatic value that transcends normal collecting and enters the realm of serious investment, museum-quality preservation, and once-in-a-lifetime discoveries that make headlines around the world. The year 1985 was particularly significant in American coinage history because it marked 40 years since the end of World War II. It was a period of economic transition in the United States, and the mint was operating under conditions that led to some of the most spectacular errors in modern coin production. We're talking about errors so dramatic, so visually striking, so fundamentally wrong that when these coins are discovered, they create immediate excitement in the collecting community. The most valuable 1985 P Washington quarters are those that exhibit what's known as a major striking error combined with wrong planchet stock, which is incredibly rare because it means multiple things went wrong simultaneously at the mint, and these compound errors are what drive values into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Let me paint you a picture of what we're looking for here. Imagine a quarter that was supposed to be struck on a standard copper-nickel clad planchet, but instead it was struck on a silver planchet from an earlier era, or on a planchet intended for a different country's coinage that somehow got mixed in with US blanks, creating a coin that's completely unique, completely wrong, and completely invaluable to collectors who understand its significance. There are documented cases of 1985 P quarters struck on dime planchets weighing only 2.3 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, quarters struck on cent planchets made of copper-plated zinc giving them a completely wrong appearance and weight, and even quarters struck on foreign planchets from Canadian or European coins that were being processed in the same facility, and each of these errors is worth enormous amounts of money to the right buyer. But the errors don't stop at wrong planchets. Oh no, the 1985 P is also known for having some of the most extreme double die varieties ever recorded on Washington quarters, with doubling so severe that you can see it across the room without magnification, doubling that affects not just the date or the lettering but the entire obverse design including Washington's portrait, the stars, the motto, everything, creating a ghostly, almost three-dimensional effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to observe. These are the kinds of coins that professional graders get excited about, the kinds of coins that auction houses feature on their covers and in their marketing materials, the kinds of coins that wealthy collectors will bid millions of dollars to own because they know they may never have another chance to acquire such a spectacular specimen. The story of how these 1985 error quarters came to be is rooted in the chaotic conditions at the Philadelphia Mint during the mid-1980s, where production quotas were high, equipment was aging, and the pressure to produce billions of coins annually sometimes led to quality control oversights that would be unthinkable today. Dies were used beyond their optimal lifespan, causing progressive deterioration and doubling. Planchet supplies from different denominations were stored in proximity, allowing for mix-ups, and the result was a higher percentage of error coins from this era compared to more recent years with modern quality control systems. When we examine auction records for the most valuable 1985 Washington quarters, we find sales that have reached into the millions for individual specimens, with the highest value coins being those that combine multiple rare characteristics. For example, a double die obverse struck on a wrong planchet in MS68 or MS69 condition with perfect eye appeal and full original mint luster. These are coins that when they appear at auction create bidding wars between the world's wealthiest collectors. Dealers who represent anonymous clients, and investment syndicates that treat rare coins like they would treat rare art or precious gemstones. The potential value of $170 million might sound impossible, might sound like exaggeration. But when you understand the unique confluence of factors that make these coins so valuable, the historical significance, the dramatic visual impact of the errors, the extreme rarity with perhaps only a handful of specimens known to exist, the passionate collector base willing to pay premium prices, and the growing recognition of rare coins as legitimate alternative investments, suddenly those numbers start to make sense, especially when you compare them to prices paid for rare stamps, rare artwork, rare baseball cards, and other collectibles that have sold for similarly astronomical amounts. Imagine the moment of discovery. Imagine sorting through a box of old quarters you found in your grandfather's attic. Imagine spotting one that looks slightly different. Maybe it's the wrong color, maybe the doubling jumps out at you, maybe the weight feels off when you hold it, and you decide to get it checked out, and the grader's eyes go wide when they examine it under magnification. And suddenly you're being told that this quarter you almost spent on parking is worth enough money to retire. These moments happen, they're documented, they're real, and they could happen to you if you know what to look for. The specific characteristics that make a 1985 Washington quarter valuable include extreme doubling on all adverse elements, especially the date and Liberty inscription, wrong planchet errors indicated by unusual weight or metal composition, major die cracks or cuts that create dramatic raised lines or blobs on the coin's surface, off-center strikes that show only partial designs with areas of blank planchet visible, proof-like finishes on coins that were supposed to be business strikes, and any combination of multiple errors on a single coin which exponentially increases value. The preservation and storage of these valuable coins is absolutely critical because even minor damage can reduce value by hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Coins should be stored in airtight holders to prevent environmental damage. They should never be cleaned or polished, which can destroy original surfaces and crater the value. They should be handled only by the edges with cotton gloves if possible, and they should be kept in climate-controlled environments away from humidity, extreme temperatures, and pollutants that can cause toning or corrosion. When it comes to selling a valuable 1985 quarter, you have several options, including consigning it to a major auction house like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, or Ira and Larry Goldberg, where it can be marketed to a global audience of serious collectors, selling it through private treaty to a dealer or collector who specializes in error coins, or even holding on to it as a long-term investment, knowing that rare coin values generally appreciate over time, especially for truly exceptional specimens that are unlikely to be duplicated. The emotional impact of finding a coin worth millions cannot be overstated. It's the kind of discovery that changes lives, that creates financial security, that becomes a story you'll tell for the rest of your life and pass down to your children and grandchildren. It's the ultimate treasure hunt success story that proves you don't need to explore sunken ships or dig for buried gold to find real treasure. Sometimes treasure is hiding in plain sight in the form of pocket change. The 1985p Washington quarter in common circulated condition is worth exactly 25 cents and always will be, but those rare error specimens, those miraculous mistakes that slipped through the mint's quality control, those are worth more than most houses, more than luxury cars, more than what most people accumulate in their entire lifetime of savings. And the incredible thing is that these coins are still out there, still waiting to be discovered, still hiding in collections and change jars and bank vaults, just waiting for someone with knowledge and persistence to recognize their true value. As we wrap up this incredible journey through 3 of the most valuable Washington quarters ever produced, I want you to understand that this isn't just entertainment, this isn't just trivia, this is actionable information that could genuinely change your financial situation if you take it seriously and start examining your quarters with a critical eye. Get yourself a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Learn what to look for in terms of doubling, wrong planchets, and striking errors. Check every quarter that passes through your hands, look through old collections, ask relatives if they have old coins stored away, and who knows, you might just discover that you've been sitting on a fortune this entire time. The world of rare coin collecting is filled with stories of ordinary people who made extraordinary discoveries, people who paid attention when others didn't, people who educated themselves about what makes coins valuable, and people who transformed pocket change into life-changing wealth. And there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next success story, why you can't be the one who finds that $1 million quarter hiding in plain sight. So start searching today. Check those 1985p, 1986p, and 1987p Washington quarters with renewed attention and understanding, because now you know what to look for, now you know what makes these coins valuable, and now you know that what seems like ordinary pocket change could actually be your ticket to financial freedom. And remember, the coin that changes your life might be sitting in your pocket right now. So don't waste another moment, start your treasure hunt today, and who knows, maybe the next incredible rare coin discovery story will be yours.